Welcome back to Stellar Horizons Campaign Game Playthrough, Episode 21. We are starting off in the year 2094 with the build phase. So let's see what everybody's doing. Starting with the Asians. They're going to spend $4 billion on a rover. They're doing good with technology this turn, and they're just going to keep on doubling down on that because they're trying to catch up. The Russians are buying a space telescope for $2 billion. Let me just collect that money. The Russians are also expending this supply and fuel from their asteroid belt base to ready that crewed vehicle. And I think the Russians now at this point are kind of giving up on the idea of building a CV-5 this decade. They were getting close. They'll see what they can do. They're running out of money though, so they're not going to be able to just buy the supplies and send them out there. They're going to have to get lucky with some space mining on their crewed vehicles. So that's their build. The Americans buying two supplies on Earth to launch on their LV-2. They're going to send it to Mars, which already has two. And then the crewed vehicle 3 that's coming into Mars is going to pick up the 4 supplies to take and sell at the Chinese base, assuming that the Enterprise takes care of the space pirates. And so that is all of our builds. The Asians are actually doing the best on money right now. Transfer box movement. Well, Enterprise down to a 1. American at Mars. This looks like an American crewed vehicle with a bunch of fuel and a Russian crewed vehicle coming into the asteroid belt. Out of Jupiter, we've got an orbiter, a rover, and a couple of crewed vehicles all arriving. Saturn, Asian and Russian flybys. And out at the scattered disk, these guys are getting closer. That's all of the mandatory movement. So, starting with the Asians, what are they doing? First of all, where are they? Okay, there's a crewed vehicle for here that's ready to go. Crewed vehicle 4 ready to go, the flyby, and this one just, they had the mission at Europa and they have done that. So at this point, they're really just interested in either resource gathering or exploration. Well, this one's probably the worst. They need fuel and supplies most of all. Just looking. If they had more supplies, they could actually sell supplies at their base. Of course, they'd like to build some more settlements. So they need fuel to help with that. And supplies. I think this one's going to stay here and mine supplies. This one, movement. We'll go to Ganymede. And this one might as well. If they want ore, they can just go to Vesta, but if they want supplies and fuel, the best place to do that is out at Jupiter. That looks like all of their movement for the Asians, except for their launch of their rover on an LV-4. 37 rocket is recovered, and the destination, they're going to send it out to Jupiter. 4-year travel time, that was on an LV-4, so they get a 3-year bonus. And so that rover goes in the 1 box. That's all of the Asians movement. Russians. Let's see here. They have a reserve crewed vehicle 4. They've got that. They've got these 3 crewed vehicles. So all their crewed vehicles are here at the asteroid belt. And the Russians say to the Asians, hey, over here at Mars. Actually, before they say that, the Russian crewed vehicle is just going to make the assumption that the U.S. crewed vehicle is going to be able to handle that pirate. So they're going to go ahead and head back to Earth. So they go out to the flyby box. They head out to Earth, and that's a 2-year journey. They'd like to buy the fuel from Mir, which is now size 3, take some of that fuel out to Mars, because Mars needs fuel to build settlements. And that way they won't have to pay for it. And then they could buy the ore at Mars. There'll be more ore available because there'll be 3 settlements. So I think that's what they're going to do there. Russians were also thinking about buying their ore and selling it at the Asian base, if the Asians will go for that. So let's see here, this crewed vehicle 4, definitely going back to the base. Do they have, see they don't even have, excuse me, they've got a fuel, they don't even have any supply at this base. So they need supplies to ready that crewed vehicle next turn. And this crewed vehicle, so if they need supplies badly, they need fuel and supplies, they're going to head with this one back out to Jupiter and try to do better. Well, I'm sorry, they've got fuel now. No, they don't. They've used up the fuel that they had, pretty much. They've just got 1 remaining. So that looks like all of the Russian movement, except for that orbiter. The orbiter is going to go into orbit around Jupiter. Engine check 23, no problem. So that orbiter now is in orbit at Jupiter. Those are Americans. That's all of the Russians. American movement. Okay, crewed vehicle 5 not there yet. Crewed vehicle 3 was heading to the Mars base. Oh, back to the Russians for a second. They're launching the space telescope on an LV-2 into Earth orbit. 24. They've lost the launch vehicle. But they do have a telescope. Right there. Okay, back to the Americans. They just moved that crewed vehicle. That one's not arrived yet. Over here, this one is going to the asteroid belt base and unloading 6 fuel. What's next? Okay, what are the Americans doing? Well, they've got a rover, and they were thinking about sending that to the Trojans and Greeks. So let's roll that movement. 48, no problem. So it follows around to this circle, orbit, and out to the Trojans and Greeks. CV4. Well, the Americans, they would like some supplies, and the best way to get that is here at Europa, because that's 8, so they're going to move over here to also remotely mine supplies. Any other movements? I think the answer is no. Just scanning. Okay. Exploration, starting with the Americans. They've got nothing here. So they've got 2 rovers, and that crewed vehicle is mining. So they'll do their EO mission, or EO, no, there's no mission. Sorry for using the word mission. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. So it's an automatic success. This is physics. A 2 or less on the red die. We'll get them a second one. Nope. 84. 1 physics marker. It's a 1. Next up for the Americans, the rover, the Trojans and Greeks. So 5 and 5 is 10 plus 2 for tech. That's a 12 automatic engineering success. And maybe one more. No. And they got unlucky there, rolled a 2. So they're getting an engineering marker for the exploration, and then 1 more engineering for the rover malfunction. The exploration was a 1. That one's a 2. No depletion, the rover comes off. That was short-lived. Even though the Americans have the best malfunction rate, they've lost 3 robotic explorers now in the last 2 turns. I think that is all of the Americans' explorations. Next up, Russians. And the Russians are the ones who are kind of sucking wind this decade on exploration. They've been focusing on other stuff, and that hasn't been working out for them super great either. Orbiter at Jupiter. Orbit at Jupiter's a 3. You can does have a spectrometer, so there's a couple of these out here. This one is physics, this one is biology. They're low on everything, so I'm not sure if there's a particular just looking at the tech tree. What are the things? I mean, this would be a good target for engineering. Getting this would be very beneficial in physics. Yeah, improving the recall rate would be good, or getting a +3, or even base if they want to build a base at one of the Jupiter moons, they need that base construction. Let's head in that direction. Let's just say biology. They've got the most points there. So for a biology, good biology research target is either, Europa 4, and that's an orbiter, so they'll get the +2. So 3 plus 4 is 7, 8, 9, -1 for distance, 8. (48) and a 6, so that is a successful biology exploration. I got a 2. That is the orbiter. Just double checking that there's, okay, rover or CV, okay, CV4s and rovers. They're flyby at Saturn. They go for more physics, or I think they'll go for the biology at Titan. 3 plus 1 is 4 plus 5, 9. Success, no malfunction. We said biology. It's a 1. No depletion. Engine check. 55, they're good. Okay, so let's reevaluate. Do they want to go for Pluto? Distance 7, 12. So that's a distance of 5. And just looking at the chart there, they're in the 4th one. So that's 3 years. 3 years to Pluto. Or I think they could do, I think it would just be 1, 1, 1. So I guess either way they'll get there in 3 years. But if they go to the 3 box right now, they'll drop down to the 2 box. Yeah, why not? I'll say Pluto. So it'll be in the 3 box. They'll be able to explore from the 2, the 1, and the flyby. That's all of the Russians' exploration. Asians, they've got quite a few. Orbiter at Mercury, and they have a mission for Mercury. Orbiter is 1 + 1 for tech, +5 is 7. No success, a 19, that's going to be a malfunction. So they get an engineering marker. Which is a 3, and the orbiter comes off. But they have done, look, they've done 3 3s and 2 5s. That's most of the, I don't think there's very many more 3s or 5s. Next up for the Asians, we forgot the Russians' space telescope. Let's go ahead and take care of that. They'll target, well, they can go for Sedna. And in fact, they are going to go for Sedna. They have surmised that the Americans have a mission at Sedna. So if they get a depletion, well, I guess, yeah. If they get a depletion at Sedna, I guess it technically would make it a little bit tougher for the Americans. So they'll target Sedna and the physics. That's an 8. It's Sedna halved to 4. Telescope is 1 + 1. So 4, 5, 6. 78, no malfunction. 2 is a success. Physics marker for Sedna. So 1. That was the Russians. Okay, back to the Asians. Nothing here in the inner system. I think they're going to do resource mining on both of those crewed vehicles, which leaves them this flyby. And they're going to go for physics or biology. They'll go for biology. So the best biology target is actually going to be this one because they get a +2 for the spectrometer. That's 6 + 2, 7, 8 + 1 for their tech, 9. A success. And a 19, that's another malfunction. So that is the end of that one. So biology and then an engineering. Biology's a 1. And I keep on getting lucky. Engineering is a 3. But that's the end of this flyby and probe. Orbiter at Neptune. I'm going to go for the physics 6 plus 4, 10. Automatic physics, just rolling for malfunction. 73. It's a 1. That's all of the explorations. Remote mining. I do believe the answer is yes. Let's see here, the Americans, remote mining for supplies. Target number is an 8. An 86, no recall, and a 3 means I get 2 supplies on that crude vehicle. I think that's their only remote mining. Russians. The Russians don't have any remote mining right now, but the Asians do. They'll do their first they'll do their supply, which is an 8, and they'll do fuel at a 5. So the supplies at an 8. 69, no recall, 3 is 2 supplies. And the fuel mining is a 5. I got a 6, so no, they only get 1, and a 35. 35 is their exact recall rate, so 1 fuel, and they're getting a biology marker, and that crude vehicle flips and gets a 2. We said 1 fuel, so let's put all that out here. So that guy got 2, this one flipped and got 1 fuel. And they got a 2 biology marker. That looks like all of the remote mining. Trade and base construction phase, starting with trades. Let's see here, doesn't look, I mean, the Russians can buy that whenever they want. I think they'll just wait, though, until they know that the coast is clear. Base construction. Americans are not doing anything right now. Russians not doing anything. And we've got stuff here, but they're just going to keep on waiting. Same thing here. They've got stuff, but I'm not. I'll have to think about it a little more for the Asians. Might as well, what do we say? I'm just paying attention. So they're going to bring back 1 fuel. So that crude vehicle that just flipped is bringing back the fuel for itself to get reflipped, and there'll be a fuel or supply. They've got 2 supplies, so they're going to be short on fuel. I guess this crude vehicle could go over there and mine some fuel now. Well, it didn't even have to move. It can stay right where it's at. Same target number. Okay, so they will go ahead and upgrade 1 settlement level, and that costs 2 ore, 2 supplies, and a fuel. And that's the only base building. And that's the end of the turn. Moving on to 2095. Build phase. And I'll be right back. All right, here are the builds. The Asians are right now, they've got 2 robotic explorers, so they're at their limit, but they're going to go ahead and go for 1 over their limit right now, and they're going to spend $4 billion to buy the flyby and the probe again. They've got an LV-4 to launch it. The Russians are buying, I screwed up with them, they have no supply right now at their asteroid belt base, so they're not able to resupply that crewed vehicle this turn. They're going to spend $2 billion, send a supply and a fuel. The Americans are not, they're expending this from their asteroid belt base to ready that crewed vehicle 4. So that is all of the builds. So transfer box movements. All right, we're gonna have a combat, maybe. There has to be first an interception. Anything there? Nope. Over here. All those guys arrive at Jupiter. Nothing at Saturn. This flyby is in the 2 box, the 1, the 2. And I had forgotten, I'm thinking instead of the flyby, the Asians instead will go for the orbiter back to Mercury. I forgot about their Mercury mission, so that's going to save them $1. And that's, I'm going to correct that build. Change that up. Okay. Okay, so Asian movements. Well, they're going to launch, let's go ahead and launch that while we're thinking about it, on an LV-4. Definitely overkill for Mercury, but as long as the rocket lasts and it does it again. So, orbiter and probe are going to make it out to Mars in the 1 box. We certainly know that this crewed vehicle with 1 fuel is returning to the asteroid belt. That'll be in the 1 box. I was considering mining fuel. I think what we'll probably do is just send fuel. It's got a better chance of getting more supplies. So they'll stick with the supply mining there. Of course, we've got another crewed vehicle coming in. So it's going to go to Ganymede. And this rover is also going to go to Ganymede. They want more physics. Looks like all of the Asian movement. Next up, the Russians. So let's see here. That guy's in the 1 box. That guy is reserved and not moving. The Russians, they need fuel and supplies. I think they'll come over here to Europa and go for supplies. And I'm just looking to see, is there any other Russian movement? Their launch. So overkill on an LV-4. 72 rocket is recovered, and they get these resources out here to the asteroid belt. I'm just checking. There's a CV4, CV4, CV3. They're good. Okay, American movement. And I'm just having to think ahead a little bit. So looking at the, we have the movement phase. We're always skipping over this combat phase, but we'll actually have that this time. So American Crewed Vehicle 3 is heading back to Earth. That'll be in the 1 box. And that American Crewed Vehicle 4 I think we'll also head back out to Jupiter. It'll be in the 1 box. And they're not launching anything from Earth, so that looks good for movement. Next up, combat phase. I'm going to pause for a moment while this is something new for all of us. So I know first we're going to do the interception roll, and then we'll see how that roll works out, and then after that we'll have a combat. Okay, so for the first thing that we're doing, we have to do a search roll. Both sides roll 1 die. If either one is 4 or less, then there's a successful interception or successful search. The Americans get to subtract 1 from their die roll because they have the fighter drone tech, and they have a drone. They have a fighter. It's the little icon there in the middle. So we will make the pirates a black die and the Americans red. And the Americans, I guess, were cocked. And the other guy was a 9. Anyway, okay, so that's going to be a huge. So that was not, they had a 9. Americans had a 1. They're going to subtract 1. So that is a successful search. Then we have to do tactics points. And tactics, so you earn tactics points equal to the other side's roll. So the Americans have 9, and the Russian, or the pirate, has 0. And then there is, so here the Americans have advanced space missiles attack, which gives them +1 tactic point. So they've got 10 tactic points. And I'm just looking for it. So with 10 tactics points, I guess they want strike value. Fighter can use if they do strike combat, which is what it is by default. And I guess we can just look at this chart together. So kind of here on the text on the right. Okay, so we've done the search is the first paragraph. Second one, that's all search modifiers. Okay, first bullet. Okay, second bullet. During strike with fighter drones attack, each drone squadron flying as a fighter decreases damage on you by 1. So the Americans will do that. But their tactics points, again, they have 10. They're not going to spend 1 to make it direct fire. They're not going to spend 3 to make it avoid combat. Spend 2 to increase damage inflicted or decrease damage. Well, so CV2 is the effective size. So they can spend 4 points, guarantee that they get the kill. And then I guess the other 6 points they'll put into avoiding damage. So this is going to be a slaughter, pretty much. So they're guaranteed to kill. They're negating 4 damage that the other person might do. So it's a 1d10. So the Americans attack. We'll roll that one first. It's a 9 plus the 3 that they have on their counter is a 12, which puts them in 3 damage inflicted, and they already chose to add 3 more, so that pirate's toast. The pirates, on the other hand, are rolling they have a 1 value on their ship, got an 8, so that's a 9, and 9, that's 2 damage, but the fighter decreases it by 1, and they spent 6 tactics points, so they negated 4 damage, so there's no damage on the Enterprise, and that pirate is gone. So with the pirate being killed, the Americans earn a victory point. And they also, this money that's been sitting up here, the pirate cash, they earn half of it, and that would be rounded up. So that's $3 billion to the Americans, leaving 2 there for the pirates, or future pirates. So that was combat. So now exploration. Starting with the Americans. Let me think. Post-combat. I'm pretty sure there would be a recall roll check, but I think it's only done, bear with me, yeah, for each damage, so you only have to roll recalls. Roll 1 recall check for every damage marker that you sustain. So you can have multiple checks. You can only earn 1 biology marker though, but they took no damage, so they don't have to roll any recall checks. All right, back to the explorations. The Americans, they have a rover. So the rover, 4 plus 2, okay, yeah, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So an automatic success. They rolled a 24 there, that's no malfunction. And an 8, that means they just got the 1 success. That's physics. Rover gets a 1. And that's all the Americans have now. Next up, Russians. Let's do their physics exploration of Sedna with the space telescope at Earth. So that's 4, 5, 6. 6 is a success, 66, no malfunction. That is physics. The Russians get a 2. Russians also have this orbiter at Jupiter. And I guess they are just kind of, I'm trying to decide, do they give up on engineering or do they just try to get as much biology and physics? If they had more engineering tech, they're certainly not trying to, I mean, they could go for CV6s. Space elevator would also be nice, but not, there's nothing here that's super critical. Of course, improving the robotic explorers would be good. Fighter drones would also be good because they have, yeah, their crewed vehicle 5s can take advantage of that. if they need that tech. But that's not very expensive. 12 points right now. Maybe they will go for the engineering. Sure, why not? They'll target the Trojans and Greeks. So that's going to be 2 plus 1 plus 5 minus 1, so 7. $72 and then 9. No malfunction, no success. Other Russian exploration. Well, they've got the Kuiper Belt flyby targeting Pluto. Let's look at our numbers for that. 3 plus 1 is 4. 7 is 11. Minus 2, 9. Yeah. That's a success. A 63, no malfunction. Pluto is a physics. And they got a 2. Trying to earn that public mission. Okay, Asians exploration. That orbiter's not there yet. Certainly mostly done there. Rover at Ganymede, going after physics. So that's 8. Just an 8. Okay. I got the 8 and then 80. So it's physics. Which is 1. And they have their orbiter here. 9 plus 1 is 10. Automatic physics, just rolling for malfunction. 93, they're good. Physics marker, a 2. No other Asian exploration. Remote mining, starting with the Americans. I believe the answer is yes. Crude vehicle here at Europa, going for supplies. That's 3 plus 5, 8. A 1, so that gets them 3 supplies, but they also rolled a 3%, so that is a recall. So they're getting 3 supplies and a biology marker. Flipping over. And their biology marker pull. Is a 2. That's all of their remote mining. Is there any Russian remote mining? Yes. Same thing, supplies at Europa. Everybody's doing that. And I think that's the only thing that's going on. So, an 8, they got, unfortunately, a 10. So they only get 1 supply. And a 26. They're okay on the recall because their recall is a 25. So they get 1 supply. 1 for the Russians and the Indians, or the Asians. Same thing, 2 and a 51. They get 2 supplies. They are not recalled, but that crude vehicle 3 is loaded, fully loaded now. So it will be returning. Oh, they do have this other one. Crude Vehicle 4 doing fuel. So the target number is a 5. They got a 15 and a 9. So they get 1 fuel and a recall. Apparently fuel mining is tough. And their biology marker. So 1. Okay, that is all of the remote mining. Trade and base construction. The answer is yes. At this point now, where is that Russian? I feel like I'm missing, oh, it's under here. And I've probably misplayed this a little bit. You know, I was sitting there waiting for that Russian crude vehicle to get restored. But if I'm just moving resources around, you don't need to be ready to do that. However, and I guess this is from a few videos back, you know, I had the question at the end of the last decade. Of course, I didn't need to have the crude vehicle here to do the trade. The base could have done it by itself. But I stopped the video, I looked at the rules, and the rule book, and I'm just going to show it here. So you go to the trade with basis section here. I don't see it say anything about that the crude vehicle needs to be ready. And then you, just in the very next section though, it does explicitly say for when you're building bases, they have to be unreserved. There is though, earlier in the book, you're up here at 266, sorry, let's see here. You know, in this section, reserve CV cannot explore, produce, trade, build bases, or be part of a fleet that initiates combat. So, it's a little inconsistent, just kind of the format there, I think. And in general, I think there are things that could be bulleted points in some of those sections. Just the rules are pretty procedural in general, and it would be good to kind of define the requirements or be a little more pointed in some of the results. But right now, you know, the rules are mostly in just paragraph text form, and you got to remember to pull those little elements out of the rules. Okay. Anyway, with that digression, I probably could have moved, and I'm just considering, is there something I would have done with them different? And I could allow them to do something, but I don't. I don't think there's anything that they're going to do, so I'll just leave them. I'll leave it as it stands. So there's trades. So the Russians do want to go ahead and buy this trade because they have their crude vehicle 3 now that will arrive next turn, and we don't want to have to wait another turn. So Mir base has 3 settlements, which means they can buy 4. So that's their last 2 billion. That's why they were saving that. So there's 4 fuel now at Mir. That's that crude vehicle 3. Again, it's the Russian one under there. Next up, base construction. We can just take a gander here. This is the asteroid belt base. Can't really, maybe you could build something, but certainly not going to be, I can't build a settlement, and I'm not sure if there's anything else I want to build right now. I guess they could improve to a small mining. That would cost 2 ore and 2 supply. They don't have the supply. Russia, they're going to get some of that fuel over here, and here they're not doing anything. Asians are still deferring a decision, and here they don't have the fuel. They have not been lucky with their fuel mining. They've got 2 crude vehicles that have gone out to mine fuel, gotten 1 fuel, and flipped. So that has not been very productive. So no base construction there, and that's going to end the turn. We're at almost 52 minutes. Let's go ahead and squeeze another turn in. Going into 2096. Be right back. Okay, here are the builds for 2096. Asians spending $4 billion to buy 4 fuel. Since they've had such terrible luck mining it at Jupiter, they're just going to go ahead and send it out there. The Russians are using a fuel and a supply from their asteroid belt base to flip this guy over. And the Americans are going to try, they got a little bit of money and they're about to make some more selling supplies. So they're going to spend $5 billion and buy the flyby and probe. The Americans right now were 1 under their support limit. Now they're back up to their support limit. The Russians are actually, they have a support limit of 1, but they actually have 4 robotic explorers on the board right now. They may decommission some in the economic phase, depending on how much that costs and what survives. And these guys, the Asians, their limit is 2. I think they have 3 right now. They've got that orbiter, they have that rover right there, and they have a orbiter and probe over here. Yeah, so they're at 3. So that is the builds. Movements. Well, that orbiter and probe arrive. These guys arrive in Earth. Asian CV at there, American CV at Jupiter. Flyby down 1. Russian rover arrives at the scattered disk. And the orbiter's 1 turn away. Okay. Movements in reverse initiative order. This orbiter needs to actually enter orbit. 99, no problem. Crude vehicle 4, going to go to the base, unload the 1 fuel. So it can be resupplied. Let's go ahead and launch while we're thinking about it on LV4. 77, launch vehicle is retained, and there's more supplies, and so they can go ahead and build that next settlement. Out here, this guy is going to head back, Asian. And same here with this one. So one's reserved, one's not. That's what they got there. I think that is all of the Asians' movements. Just scanning the board here. Okay, next up, Russians. Russian Crude Vehicle 3 is going over to the Mir base because to load up the fuel that's there. I'm just looking, where is the other Russian CV4? There's this one here. Oh, and this one, which is still mining. I think all right, sorry for the dead air there. I was just trying to decide what is the right thing to do with this Russian Crude Vehicle 4? Do we send it back out to Jupiter? There's already one there, mining supplies. It's such a crapshoot. I mean, everything's a crapshoot, really. I think they're just going to come over here and go for an exploration. I'm trying to decide, is that the right thing? Come over here, mine ore, go out and mine supplies, explore Jupiter, explore here. I'm going to come over here and mine ore. So that looks like all of the Russians' movement. Yep. Okay, next, no, that rover needs to go to Eris. So we just need to do an engine check. Well, 4%. It's okay. Their engine failure rate is a 3. But that was close. And it would suck. Because I think, didn't that happen before? Last time they sent something out here? It arrived and failed that engine check. Okay. Americans movement. Okay. Well, this Crude Vehicle 3 we know is going to go over and dock at the Chinese base, and it will be able to do that trade. Crude Vehicle 5, well, successful combat mission. There's no pirates. That's a really good explorer. A 6 plus 2 puts it to 8. It's also got the mobile lab, which means it gets to roll 2 red dice. So that is an exploring beast, and it has no cargo capacity. So it seems like the thing to do is to send it to Jupiter. Earth to Jupiter, distance of 5. It's a 3-year trip. You know, is there something else? I mean, it could go to Mercury. I think we send it to Jupiter. What else for the Americans? So they have those crude vehicles, yeah, a 3, and don't they have 2 4s? There's one of them, and there's the other one. Well, this one is reserved and pretty much full, so it's going to end up coming back to the asteroid belt. And this one, I think they'll do some more supply mining. That looks like all of the movement, except for the Americans have a launch on an LV-2, flyby in a probe. $80, rocket is recovered. They're going to go ahead and go for the asteroid belt. String of things there. exploration phase. Well, starting with the Americans, they're going to just go ahead and use up the probe, and they're going to target Vesta. So that's a 9 plus 2 is 11 plus 1 is 12 minus 1 for the distance. Guess you probably can't do that with the probe. So scratch that. Flyby 3 plus 2 is 5, 6, 7, 8, minus 1, 7. Four and a 100. So that is an engineering. One point. Next exploration for the Americans. Got their rover here, which is still 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So one success and maybe a second. Nope, 95, no malfunction. That's physics. It's a 2. That's a rover. No other American exploration right now. Russians. They've got their space telescope. They're going to target Sedna again. 6. They got the 6 and an 86, so that's a physics marker. It's a 1. That guy's going to mine orbiter, Russian orbiter. I don't remember what we picked last time, but we're going to go for biology. 4 plus 2 is 6 plus 1, 7, 8, 9, minus 1 for the distance. I think that was an 8. 53, no malfunction, successful. Biology at Europa. Just 2. What else do we have for the Russians? Well, they've got their flyby here, and then they're going to have their rover. So flyby 3 plus 1 is 4, 7 is 11, minus 1 back to 10. Automatic physics. Roll for malfunction. Nope. And the physics marker. So 1. And their rover at Eris. 7 plus 4 plus 1. Sounds like 12. It's a 100 and a 4. So just the single physics. And this is for a mission as well. A 2. That's all of the Russians' explorations. Asians, they'll use the probe, so it's a 9 plus 1 is 10, and 5, 15. No malfunction. Check. A 4 means I do get to get 2 engineering markers. First is a 2. Second one, a 2. Again, because that's a robotic explorer, they do not get to add them together like a crewed vehicle would. Yeah, I was just noticing the American flyby here. I remember we rolled for that. Asians rover at Ganymede. It's an 8. No, it's a 9. 3 and a 34, so that is physics. Jackpot with the 5. Another political marker. At 4 is going down to a 3. No spectrometer on that rover, so only 1 world card. And the world card is an impact basin, which does give a bonus to rovers. It also is less interesting than the mixed ice, but Callisto already has a mixed ice and has the same bonuses. So the question is, since they've got the rover, they might prefer to have the exploration bonus and not worry about the resources. Next up for the Asians is this orbiter that's doing quite well at Neptune. And again, that says 10 physics. Just rolling for malfunction. 36, so no malfunction, but before we finish that one, we forgot to roll the life check, 5% at Ganymede. So there's no malfunction on that rover. We're going to pull a physics. Life check for the previous depletion, 20, no life. And the physics marker for Neptune is a 2. And that is all of the explorations. So next up, remote mining, starting with the Americans. They're doing supplies on Europa. And that's an 8. They got a 10 and a 51, so 1 supply. No other American remote mining. The Russians are doing supplies here at an 8, and then we'll come back and do the ore at Vesta. Europa supply mining. They got the 8, so they get 2, 60 something, no recall. Okay, that's CV4. It's 7 for ore. 72, no recall. 5 is 2 ore. Asians, do they have any remote mining? The answer is no. Trade and base construction. Yes. Americans, I'm going to sell 4 supplies for 8 billion. And they can do up to 4 because that's where they're on the free trade section. Get them. So that's 8 billion for them. Other trades. No. Base constructions. Not for the Americans. Not for the Russians. But the Asians will go ahead. Spend 2 supply, 2 ore, and 1 fuel. So we can bring back 3 ore. And they're going to go to 3 settlements. Doing this one-handed is tricky. I think that is all that we've got for that turn. Russians are going to bring some of this fuel over to Mars, and then they can build 2 settlements. Then I guess they could buy some more ore right at the end of the decade, maybe. Not sure if the Americans could come over here and buy ore from the Japanese. And I'm not sure what the Asians are going to do. I think they can sell some of that supplies that they're bringing in at that base, and maybe they'll I can always just buy ore on Earth, send it to that base. That's probably worth doing as long as the launch vehicle holds out. Okay, well, yeah, anyway, we were closing in, so now we're going to go to, yeah, we did 2, 2, we've done 3 turns, and so when we come back, 2097, so we got the last 3 turns of the decade, and the turns are speeding up a little bit here as we power into the end. People are kind of out of money. For the most part, they're not sending out new missions, and it's just kind of grab what you can before the economic phase. All right, thanks. See you next video.